Hi everyone. So we're going to try something a little different with this piece I'm working on tonight. I had gotten a couple questions, so I'm going to try and record this while working on it, which means I'll be working on trying to work and talk at the same time. So we're going to see how that works. It doesn't often work that well, so let's try it tonight. Quick thing, let's see, the two questions. Why do I not do a couple of, let's see, why do I not do thumbnails? And I think the answer is going to be apparent soon. This is digital, so, and this isn't for a project, so in most cases, I'm just going to be doing this for myself. Let's see, this time it's Avengelyne and her sister Divinity. I don't know really anything about these characters. Not much. I think we can kind of see the costume ideas. I think they're fallen angels, except good, I guess, or one of them is a fallen angel and the other is not a fallen angel, I guess. But I don't do yeah, let's just do this the way I normally would. I don't do thumbnails because I'm going to work this out compositionally here. This is something similar to, at least what I understand, Frank Frazetta would do with his stuff. He would try to make lines or shapes, generally an amorphous shape that was intriguing or pretty or attractive, and then from there basically work in the composition. This is me kind of roughing in the forms that I want to try to play with. So because I'm doing this digitally, I work everything out as I go, and I find that a lot more effective. Let's see, I want lines that go here. Let's go with these guys. No, too dark. Let's see, that might be right. Yeah, this is the color I want. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to guide the eye. My idea was, if this is a fallen angel, I don't know if she has wings or not. So I want to put them in a sort of a cemetery, graveyard, someplace where there would be a statue with wings in the background. Probably higher. And let's see here. And I want to put that in perspective, because the other question I had gotten was about, or the comment I had gotten was about figures in perspective, having difficulty with figures in perspective. I'm going to explain that in 1 second. Basically, I want our eye level right about here. And maybe here. Yeah, that would be the horizon line, where our eye is. If you'd think about us, we're crouching down, this is what we would see. And because of that, every vanishing point, and we all know perspective is really just kind of an illusion, because parallel lines don't ever meet. So for all intents and purposes, we'll just define, like, for right now, that as our vanishing point. And everything will go here. So these are parallel lines, and they're all going to terminate at this vanishing point here. Oh, brother. Okay, let's grab that color again. Right there. All parallel lines will terminate there, and that would go for, lines over here, lines over there. And then in order to get a 2-point perspective, we'd have another line here, let's say. We don't need to make them crazy, and then those would all go here, terminating at that vantage point. I can swing that out if I want to open up this I thought people could see my hands for a second. Okay, if I want to open this angle up, and I would bump that out here. I have actually some tools here that are really effective for doing that in Photoshop, but I wanted to draw that out to kind of show you a better way, or an easier way to think about it. Alright, so if, for instance, this angel statue is in perspective, and let's say it's this line, or it's these two vanishing points, and we'd have a third, I'd put a third up here, but significantly higher probably, just so I don't make it too intense. And then everything would go from here to there, like this. So that's the general idea. Let's reduce that opacity to make it a little less confusing. So when I'm thinking about constructing a character or a figure in perspective, I don't do all of these things. I've been doing this a while. I kind of eyeball it, and it does. That's generally, I think, a pretty effective. So let's go here. Let's see. Another vanishing point would be there. You're making basically a box around everything. This is, again, perspective is just a tool to kind of map out forms. It's not a as I said, parallel lines don't intersect, so it's not an accurate depiction of reality. So let's put a person here. There's our person, a shoulder, a chest. Okay. We've just drawn a person in perspective. But I don't know many people who actually stand like that. It's so stiff, it's rigid, it's like a box. It's literally exactly like the box that it's in. We still observe those perspective lines. The perspective lines, let's say there are buildings here in the background, and you know, there's a facade or for an outdoor patio. I'm sorry if I'm mumbling. All of these lines terminate generally here, and that keeps everything in perspective. We could even change it up, because cities don't have everything perfectly in perfect squares, and we could change the perspective there so that that building is now going to a vanishing point somewhere over here, always observing this horizon line that I established where I want the eyes to be. So we keep everything like that, but if we were to observe that with the person, it would be so stiff and unnatural looking. So we make changes to this. Now, a little change here goes a very long way. But we still have these, if you're eyeballing it, we still have these lines in our mind's eye as we're working out our forms. And then we just deviate a little bit. That's really dropping that shoulder. But because, again, a little bit of change to those perspective lines really is pretty big. And so we keep the imaginary box around the figure. I should probably make that in another color, but hopefully it's somewhat understandable here. We keep that imaginary box and then just tweak, always remembering where that generally, because again, I don't draw this box every time, always remembering or keeping in mind, bearing in mind where those forms are. And as we get closer to the horizon line, you know, the knee, for instance, the horizon line bisects the knee. And it's going to bisect both knees roughly because, well, she's not going to be standing. It's going to be very difficult for her to stand, or this figure. I guess we could do it like this and have her foot on something. Then the knees aren't touching that, aren't being bisected by that horizon line. But generally, if a person's standing, their knees are going to be on the same plane. There she is, and then we can illustrate it from there using the same general forms we would work out when we're creating any character, just trying to observe and keep it in mind, keeping in mind that perspective box we put around her. I hope that makes a little sense. So back to, I hope that makes a lot of sense. If not, drop me a question in the comments, and I'll try to answer that a little more clearly. Okay, so why do I not do thumbnails? Because I'm working digitally, and I generally have a pretty good idea of what I want, or at least I'll work it out while I'm working out the page, the image. And so I was thinking, fallen angel, alright, I want her to be tough, some sort of statue, but I also want her sister, apparently is some sort of kind of like a goof or something. I'm not exactly sure. So I want her to be kind of silly, like, I don't get all this fighting stuff. And let's see, put her here. Let's have some steps. I really want to work with themes. That's one of the things I try to consider when I'm I want to tell a story compositionally, but I also want to tell a story in terms of how I reinforce those themes. Fallen angel, well, maybe she doesn't have wings. I'm not exactly sure. So if that's the case, if she doesn't have wings, then I want a statue to kind of be ironic. I want that that visual irony. And because I want to really push this character, hopefully you guys can see the character, she's sitting on steps. I want to push and play with that, and I want her in the extreme foreground. I'd thought about doing this horizontally, turning the page 90 degrees so I could, I don't know, get a little more room to play. I might still do that. I don't know. And this is just, I didn't do any layout work or maybe what you would call thumbnails before sitting down. Let's see, and then we'll have a knee here, and then a knee there, and that, oh, there you go. That knee is going to stay right here. It is in your perspective. Staying in the same perspective as that, and then I'll just tweak that to kind of keep it organic. So I don't want to line everything up perfectly with the perspective lines in the background, because again, like buildings in a city, they're not all on the same on some perfect grid. Okay, so I've worked out a rough kind of idea. You know, do this. Okay, and drop that a little bit. Drop it a lot. I've worked out a rough idea. I want her head turned back. I can see it, even though I'm doing it with these like silly, like really general lines, I can see. Okay, but I don't want to get too specific about it. All right, this, I want to be a little taller, and I love the idea of that wing guiding our eye into the piece, because this is going to be our tough, awesome big sister to the other girl. apparently. All right, let me knock that back for 1 second. And then this is the workflow that I have developed that I think works best for me. Okay, I want that shoulder up here like this, and as you can see, I'm not really paying a ton of attention to the lines of the bleed lines for the page. That's going to come in a second. Okay, I want lines that guide. As you can see, line that comes in, line that comes in. The sword will kind of go down. I don't want it to match the line of her legs, so I'll tweak that in the background a little bit. But I'm starting to like this. I'm starting to feel like this is kind of a cool. And that sword is pretty perfectly aligned with her leg, so I'll fix that. Let's see. I really would like to not see the angel statue's face. I just want it or head. I don't want that to be confused with the head directly. I want it to be completely obscured. Okay, let's see here. Now, again, we're observing a horizon line. It's going to be a little different than what I drew before, but it's pretty close to right there. And so those shoulders, let me see if I can do this to make it. Those shoulders are going to go to as it is right now, those shoulders will go there. Actually, let me put this on a different layer, so. Can you tell this is the first time doing something like this? That's going to go to boom, boom, there, and the hips. Everything will proceed from that as she's standing right now. But again, no one stands perfectly. So we do a little tweak here. And we're going to even off her shoulders like she's squared up. Like maybe her lower body, the lower half of her body is on this perspective line, on this, terminates at this vanishing point. But her shoulders, because she's squared up a little bit, I mean, you know, she's looking at us, or maybe she's, let's see, what's her hair look like? What does her hair look like? Like that, maybe. Yeah, you know, starting to look tough. Like the one character, it's really, that is her costume. All right. And I guess that is her costume. So, yeah. I don't make up the costumes, folks. I just draw. But this is how I do that. I want that a little bit forward. I want her lower body forward because I want to sort of have an arch. Like she's been fighting, and her sister doesn't understand maybe what the big deal is. Girls just want to have fun, except this girl, I guess. Okay, so at this point, this is just me working things out as I go, and I really like this this perspective. I really like this shot. This shot accomplishes a lot of what I was looking for. So let's see. Let me knock this one back a little bit. Nope, don't want to do that. Let's do it like this. So this is kind of the idea of continually erasing, knocking back the lines or the work you've put down. But the big piece that I would hope, aside from the questions that I tried to answer, man, I hope I hope I explained that in a way that makes sense, or I hope this audio actually works. But the main thing I want to try to convey with this piece is how, like, Frazetta would just, you know, work out an amorphous form or shape, and just then build on that. And I don't know, maybe it's a Viking jumping, I don't know. He's got his and he would work out that form and that shape, and then he would make those amazing paintings and amazing illustrations. And so that was really an inspiration for me, trying to determine a way that I could make pieces that weren't very stiff, weren't doing this, weren't doing chicken scratch, but instead were quickly quickly building compositions that I liked. She might not be as buff as the Glory character that I did earlier. I'm really not sure. All right, let's bump that down because we want to keep that in perspective. So, and then here we go. Okay. And so from here, I would just continue working up this warrior chick. Way too big lats. As you can see, I erase. I mentioned it last time, the idea of thinking that people just get it right on the first shot. Maybe some do. But I am not one of those guys. And maybe if you're watching this, you aren't either. So, hey, let's erase together. Embrace the erase, right? I'll stop with that. Okay, now let's consider that statue. I should have gotten reference for generally what statues, angel statues in cemeteries or wherever this is, what those look like. Let's see. I want more hair, though. I think she has I want the hair to kind of obscure a little bit of like the face of the statue. Alright. Let's do this. And here, this is just, now I'm penciling in some rough ideas. If I were working on paper, maybe I can, if people like the videos, I can try to figure out a system to work traditionally. I know some people might feel like, you know what? I like that right there. I like that. Maybe we'll just make that a broken wing, like the statue. Part of the statue is broken. But yeah, I can try and maybe figure out a way to do this traditionally, so that people won't feel left out if they don't have a tablet or something. The principles are the same, but well, the application is a little different in some ways. Alright, we're again just continuing to... Let's give her a unique sword, maybe. And again, just working out ideas. The angel statue, just kind of, it's in the background. I don't want it to be, I've had a problem with this often in the past, where I would put the detail in on literally everything, but it's in the background. You don't need all the detail. Alright, she has bangs, and again, I wanted her to be kind of turned around, looking up, so let's give her bangs, do that kind of thing. And that's too big. This is the thing that I love about digital work. I can change. It's not even so much the undo, it's the transform tool. I know that's lazy. I need to be drawing and redrawing and redrawing and redrawing. But yeah, big fan of being able to just move something whenever I don't like it, but don't like where it is, don't mind the shape of it. Okay. Okay, there's the shoulder. And again, I think this sister is a goofball. The fun one, and then there's the... And so as you can see, here are the steps. Her bust will line up with the with that because of the way she's turned. Now I could angle that and change that, and so it'll be like a weight scales. As that one goes, as this goes up, as this side of her body goes up, this side goes down, and that just kind of keeps it, helps it look a little more organic. And let's see, this leg will go down here like this, and let's see, here we go. Okay. Because she is sitting on steps, and I mean, it makes sense to me. Maybe, I guess, I don't know. I just wanted a setting. I mean, I can put various things in the background, cemetery type stuff. Let's see. See, I have to avoid. Don't get caught in the detail, Brett. But I hated that form. There. Come on, don't get too detailed. Okay. A little better. And let's see. And here we go with the leg. The arms are generally, elbows are going to be generally the same perspective, or the same line, terminating at the same at the vanishing point. Okay. And all right, and so we can work out now a couple of the, if there are areas of weakness. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't wear anything on her legs. I'm not sure. I might have to look for another piece of reference here. I don't want her looking at her sister. I want her... maybe a little humorless. I said humorless, not fish person face. Alright, when you're drawing a shot, a low shot like that, you want to keep in mind that by virtue of just, you know, the human face, the eyebrow is going to be higher, maybe even in some cases high, a lot higher than you think, above the eye. Let's build that out. Okay, collarbones. Collarbones. Collarbone. I mean, still, the face is horrifying, but I'm not so worried about details right now. At least I'm not supposed to be. And if I bog down into the details right now, that's me, not being strong enough to say no to myself. Alright. Okay. Let's break that a little bit more, maybe. Not quite that much. And not so level. Not so plumb. Alright, here we go. Here we go. There we are. Alright, so the rest of the statue in the background. Alright. I'm starting to like it. I think this leg is too far over this way. That might be a little bit better, and let's get it at a different angle. So when you're working, how is it difficult for you to talk? Because it's a little bit challenging for me. I'm apparently using a part of my brain that is completely opposite the language center of my mind. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up and see if that's actually the case. Head's a little bit big, even though she's young. I think the head's a little bit big for the frame that I want. So we're gonna then and what do you listen to? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to audiobooks? I've done both. I try not to have the television on because I don't want to be looking at or thinking about something like that. And audiobooks I actually feel guilty about because it's like I feel like I waste a book because I'm not paying attention. And sometimes I'll have to go back and rewind to figure out what the guy was talking about while I was trying to think or draw. I'm not sure they're independent. All right. Nope. Okay. Brad, don't do this. Don't get involved. Don't get bogged down. I love listening to 80s music. Seems like a creative time. And I don't know, I feel inspired when I listen to it. Alright, and now, man, this costume, I am not sure. It's like, okay. Collar. Again, the collar is kind of following a, well, it's definitely following a, the perspective lines from before. I think it makes sense that it would come down like this and give some room for her to move there. I'm not sure that the costume design here has functionality in mind, but we want our version of Avengelyne to be able to swing that sword. Alright. Okay. Alright. And here we go. As I said, when I can, I'll save that face as a piece for later. Let's have it. Let's have her looking down at her sister like maybe she's disappointed. Maybe maybe her sister's gotten in trouble. There we are. She's on some sort of furlough from heaven or something like that. Pouty. Very upset. Very upset at her sister for something. Alright, let's see how that works. And of course, we'll have to rough out the stuff in the background for that statue. But again, I don't want it to detract or take away in any way from the glory character. So let me bump this over just a tiny bit. Okay. Now, use sort of a goofy. Let's see. Will this work? It needs to be a little darker. Sort of a sloppy pencil type of thing that I'll work in shadows. Yeah, I cannot believe that's this kid's costume. Alright. I don't want to put a lot of detail. I don't want to make it, make her look like she's got these really muscled or certainly defined thighs. I think simple is better in the case of some of these figures, especially the younger ones. Okay. All right. Okay. So from here, I would honestly, typically, just try to go pretty close to straight to penciling, like final pencils. But we might take a little more time this time around. And I think she has like wraps around her arms. Yeah. There we are. Okay, just get some sort of chain. Alright. Sorry about that. I kind of went in my own world there for a second. I apologize. This is me just trying to find forms that I want to express in the, and again, not sure if she has boots or what. But there you go. That's kind of what I would stick with for the first pass. I hope that explains a little bit about how I keep things generally in perspective and why I don't do thumbnails, because I'm looking at, let's see, that needs to be dropped down. I'm wanting to look at ideas that I have in mind, and I kind of visualize those and don't necessarily need the need thumbnails in a lot of cases, particularly for like these quick contest files that I work out. Now, truthfully, I don't do them for the other larger projects typically either. But in any case, all right. What do you think? Decent start? I think so. Thanks for checking in, and I'm going to probably speed the rest of this up so this video doesn't take a huge amount of time. Okay, so we're just going to continue what I had started in the longer full-length piece, and I'm just going to be still working out poses that I like, that kind of that better express the characters and make the composition more interesting. And I think I've got a really good idea about what to do with the girl in the front, Divinity, here, and again, just working out ideas. You'll see that I continue to work that out and then get to penciling. I'm going to work on, I think this time it's going to be, I didn't try to go straight to pencils. I wanted to work out sort of a sketchy pencil first. I usually try to force myself to go as quickly from the first stage to the last, but I wanted to try this time an intermediate stage of working the art out. My goal ultimately is to be able to start on a blank page or blank canvas and then have it mapped out well enough in my mind to be able to go as close to straight to inks as possible. That's one of the goals that I have, and I think it's really important to always have these goals in mind when we're working and growing on something, particularly when you're trying to grow in your art, but anything really. It applies to everything. Have an end goal in mind, have a destination, so that you can measure, quantify what you've done, or how well you've done, or how poorly you're doing, or where you have areas of opportunity. And that's mine. I want to move faster to a finished piece, more confidently, I think would be a way to say it. And this time I just gave myself a kind of a pass on developing this really sketchy line work, and then I'll go through and tighten that up. So for me at least, inking it takes all the guesswork out. I just basically trace in the inking phase. That's my goal here. So I'm at this point in the process, I want to lay out some shadows using it was just a soft, sloppy pencil brush that I made, just so I can rough in ideas, because I want to use, again, the eye. Okay, and here we are starting the finished pencil. I want to guide the eye through lines and form. So I want areas or blocks of black to guide your eye into the Avengelyne character, and then to the sister, and then the sister's leg that extends off camera, I want to be a line that guides into her. So we really have this focus from the top left and from the bottom right, drawing the characters up. The wings of even the broken wing of the angel statue in the background will be pointing in toward Avengelyne. And this is just part of the process of defining an image, or determining the focal point of an image. Clearly, the angel statue is not the focus, so I want to try to limit the detail. That's something that took me a long time to get in my head. It's not necessarily an accurate representation of reality I'm going for. I want to instead give the indication so that you know or immediately recognize what it is back there, and you get that, oh, this is a reference to her being a fallen angel, and you make that connection. But it's not going to draw your eye away from the focal point, which is the two sisters, Divinity and Avengelyne and Divinity. And what you're going to see now is me just taking the lines that I roughed in, the blocks that I roughed in. I'm going to define those, clarify those, using a more finished pencil, making sort of final decisions on where grays will go, and the gray would be the hatching areas, and where the black would go, which is the full blocks that I've kind of sketched in. And you could mark those, like just outline the box and put a square over it. I still haven't trained myself to do that. I kind of need to see at least for myself, I need to see the areas of black. I need to see the focal points. And yeah, I kind of made up the boots. I hope ROB Liefeld doesn't mind. I wasn't clear on what she wears, or clear on that part of the uniform, but I kind of like this. As you can tell from, or see from the screen, I take something that's kind of roughed out or implied in the background, in that sketchy, blocked out brush that I use. And then I try to develop that and give myself the freedom to express, take that general form and then express and develop it beyond what I laid out in that simple blocking out. That's something that I would really encourage, because I know from my own journey, it was a real challenge for me. I think there's something wrong with the way we're taught to do art, at least from my perspective, because we're often encouraged to be very specific about. It's like we start out. I've watched it even with my kids. We start out and we're very creative, and the kids just draw, and they just create, and what they see in their mind isn't necessarily what's on the final page, but it doesn't matter. They enjoy the whole process. And I think somewhere along the line, we're then taught, well, you've got to be able to draw accurately. You've got to draw the volume or light and reflects and refracts off an image. You've got to do all of those things properly, and it becomes very technical. And particularly as we become more intermediate and more advanced, I think we do spend more time focusing on the specificity of something. I need to do this thing or draw this thing the right way. So I'm focused on that. I would encourage everyone aspiring to do an exercise that really worked for me early on, particularly when I was learning digital painting. I would rough out a form on on the canvas, and then develop that into an image from just that rough form. It's similar to what I suggested Frank Frazetta would do. Block out a form, just any form, and then build the characters and the focal points within that form that he had roughed out. This is tremendously helpful for me, and it encourages me to think creatively, to have the confidence to then take something and develop it and develop that further on my own without needing a very tight pencil sketch to define everything. I wasn't very happy with how I'd handled the laces. That's one thing I want to encourage, not to become a slave to detail, but to have the self-discipline to be able to put the necessary detail where it's necessary. Those laces on those boots are right in our faces. They're right up close. So that needs to be defined. That can't be just slopped in. Oh, yeah, you might notice, I just saw it right there. I had some problems. My computer, my Wacom, crashed on me, and I literally lost everything on this piece except for some roughs from the beginning, and I had to go back using the video, the screen recording video, and make JPEGs of that I was able to kind of fit back into the screen. This thing. But in any case, so now I've put the blue layer over my pencils, and then I'm just inking. Inking is something I really want to work on. I really want to, as I've mentioned before, when I was starting out, I was terrified of inking, terrified of making a mistake and ruining a piece. I think you need to ruin some pieces before you can get confident in developing. It's something I kind of alluded to last time. Mistakes are part of the process. They're not failure is a pertinent negative. It tells you, don't do this next time or learn from this. But it's just part of the process, and I encourage it. I encourage my kids, don't be afraid of failing. Be afraid of not trying. Be afraid of lagging back because you're too afraid of making a mistake. We make mistakes, we move forward, we grow from that. That's such a vital part of being an artist, but also being a human. And once again, I find what I learned from art, or what I learned from other people doing art, is such an analog for what we need to learn and do and to grow in our own lives. It's very interesting. At least it is to me. So anyway, back to inking. I have really two different planes here. There's the foreground and there's the background. The statue could be considered a midground, but I'm just going to treat it as part of the background. And I want to separate the figures in the foreground, the important figures, the focal figures, from the background. And so I'll do that by how I define their contour shapes, or their forms, the outlines around them, but also through the texturing and the lines that I put in those forms. So you'll see where I'm working on the statue of the pedestal. I want that to be different, or at least feel different, than the sword, the leg, and the boot that overlap it. And that's one of the things that I think is really important about inking. It's not necessarily this idea of accurately tracing or faithfully tracing the lines, as much as it is clarifying the intent and the reason behind those lines, if that makes sense. I know that sounds a little strange, or a little loosely defined, but the idea of inking is making a decision between black and white. It literally is an issue of determining what a line is, its final form. But it's also a matter of separating things, separating obviously black from white, but also separating and defining the grays within that tonal range from black to white. That's what the hatching's about. And then it also is designed to separate our characters, or separate the overlapping forms, foreground and background. And so I'm going to try to put heavier lines on the contour shapes for the ladies in front, Avengelyne and Divinity here. And eventually I'll end up putting a white highlight around them too, just to further separate them. But like the wing, for instance, the broken wing, I'll put hatching on that should be unique, or at least I'm trying to get that idea. It should be unique to the feeling of an old statue. I won't use that same inking on the wraps on her arm, for instance, which are more delicate and smoother. The sarcophagus, or back in the background, it's designed again to feel like stone and be part of a background. So the feeling and the almost location of a piece can be defined by how we utilize line, if that makes sense. So I would suggest sometime trying it for yourself. See how in Photoshop or on a piece of paper, make blocks or forms or of color of ink. Ink out like an amorphous shape or something, and then build out using lines. Maybe lines that go one way, and then lines like hatching lines, and then cross hatch those, and see how you can separate forms. Does anyone remember those exercises? Maybe it was just me in high school art class, where the teacher would have you do hatching lines and then maybe a cross hatching line to try to distinguish certain areas by how you by the hatching, just by line itself. It's taking that idea and then building on that principle. Give it a shot. Try it. It's something that I'm working on myself, and I'm trying to build myself to better separate shapes, midground, foreground, background, that kind of thing. Truthfully, one of my probably the first comic I ever did, I did the entire thing in gray wash, and I would love to get back to that. I just haven't found a good gray wash look that I like so far for digital inking. Maybe one day I'll do it. I'll get back to doing it traditionally. But the gray wash makes everything easier from my perspective to handle what I'm trying to do here through hatching. The lines that I create, the hatching lines and the cross hatching lines, are really just a gray between the black and the white, variations of the gray between black and white. Okay, going back in and reworking that left arm. I did not like that. Still not 100%. It was something that I kind of changed last minute, but it works. There we go. A little better. And from here, we're just going to finish up some of the last things. I think I'm probably going to end up working on that arm more than once. Probably revising it at least one more time before I finish. And we again are inking this in a way that, there you go, in a way that bears in mind foreground, midground, that bears in mind a separation of line styles, line widths, and that just helps us separate things, foreground and background in this case. I think I could have clarified that shield a little better than I did. It kind of gets lost, maybe a little. And as we wrap this piece, I'm going to clearly finish the inks here, bring this file back into Photoshop so I can separate, right there you go, using some of the put a line around the foreground character, separating them from the background, just to kind of help clarify it in our eye. Going forward, in terms of things that I want to work on, I definitely want to work on fixing or strengthening my inks, but I'm also, hopefully you'll begin to notice, working on my anatomy to try to change and maybe move away a little bit from being slavishly dedicated to anatomical correctness, and maybe go with something a little more cartoony and exaggerated. I think that could be more fun. But here we go. That's the piece. I hope you like. I want to thank everyone for watching. I actually enjoyed this video, and if you like the style of this video, let me know, and maybe I can do more like this. But again, thanks for taking the time. I hope this helps in some way the aspiring artist out there. Thank you very much. Take care.